I'll call to order the Planning and Zoning Special Meeting of Thursday, August 1st, 2019 at 7 p.m. And if everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, make yourself comfy. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner McGraw.
Here.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Present.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Present.
Vice Chair Heck.
Present.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Okay, let's move on to approval of the agenda. If someone wants to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy?
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay. We have one item tonight under old business, the presentation and discussion of the proposed 2020 general plan.
Good evening, Commission. As mentioned in our last meeting, we're going to be covering chapters 4, 5, and 6, the downtown element, the economic development element, and the public safety element. If anybody forgot their packets, we have extras up here. Looks like everybody has theirs. We'll start with chapter 4. It's on your screen. This is the downtown element. Really, the introduction really talks about the importance of having a downtown. It really serves as the city's heartbeat. It also gives a demographic overview, and it touches upon really where the location of the downtown is on Apache Trail and the 88. Really where the Grand Hotel site is really the center of the downtown area. And it also talks about the necessity of density, residential density along the downtown, and why that's important so people could live and work, and it creates that atmosphere. On the next page, it kind of gives you the boundaries of the downtown, and there's a map at the end of the plan that you could reference to as well. It also speaks about the current zoning designations found in downtown and also the land use designations found on the general plan. One of the items that we discussed as staff is really creating that place in the downtown, really a destiny. And this placemaking section talks about that. And it talks about establishing that a number of ways, either through some sort of branding, talks about using perhaps a color palette, signage branding, or having a specific architectural theme in the downtown, and that way it's easily distinguishable. We also talk about tourism. And
do you want us to stop you as we go along on things?
Yeah, we could do either. It's really an informal meeting, so you guys can stop me at any time.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to stop you.
All right, let's do it.
I have two little things on this page.
Okay.
Up on the first paragraph there.
Are we talking about the very first?
Yeah, the very first.
Okay.
No, on this page, where it says Dutchman State Park, right there. No, the very, up
Okay,
here.
right, yep.
In order to bring this version, take the do out.
Yeah, so we're still working on.
Okay, that was just a little
yeah.
thingy.
And-
But under
Fine to me.
placemaking,
Yes,
Yeah.
on the first sentence, known for the Superstition Mountains and the tale of the Lost Dutchman, since our city logo is legends, what if we change tale to legends? Legend, the legend of the Lost Dutchman?
absolutely. Anyone else on this page?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Rowley?
Also, I would like to back up Chairperson on the use of the logo. We have this logo, it's right on the front of our books, and it says surrounded by legends, but we don't see that too often. And I think if we're going to be branding ourselves, and that's going to be our logo, and we're going to be surrounded by legends, well, what in the hell kind of legends are we surrounded by, and how do we promote those? So the use of the logo is going to be, I think, key in helping us to have a sense of place. Also, here is, and I think it's important for us as a city to recognize that within our own boundaries of our city, which we know currently exist, we have these little pockets of land that is still, these county islands. We need to annex those into the city to get rid of that so that we are a true holistic community. And then we need to be very aggressive in annexing any land surrounding us to identify ourselves, because we know that even though we have agreements with Queen Creek and maybe some of the other cities, those agreements can be broken and they're going to land grab. So we need to define ourselves. Where are our boundaries? Who are we? And what are we all about, so that we can say we are truly Apache Junction. Now, that's my rant for the night.
We do address that in chapter 12, intergovernmental cooperation,
Okay.
about annexation and having a more firm stance
Okay.
on, we have 15,
So I'm way
15
ahead
county
of-
islands. No, we're gonna get there, but it was a good rant.
Okay,
I agree.
okay, thank you, Larry.
Write that down so you can do it the next time.
Yeah, right on, that. We'll do it again.
That's my stump speech.
So proceed.
Anyone
Anyone
else so
else?
far?
And
No?
I also have another question.
Okay.
When we go, let's go back to the first page on chapter 4, downtown element. And here again, you say, furthermore, the loss of tax increment financing has had a devastating blow to the creation of a downtown. Why, I have to ask, is that a problem? There are other cities who are very active with TIF.
Well,
And-
Arizona, it's illegal. So it was illegal, they made it legal, it's now illegal again. So we're one out of 49 that don't allow TIF. So the city had a TIF when we could, and I want to say it brought in about $400,000 a year. Joel's an expert on this because he went through the litigation with the county. But we can't have TIF, but that $400,000 a year was using for placemaking in the downtown, for lighting, landscaping, banners, those types of things. And I think brick pavers, all that stuff kind of unfortunately went by the wayside. So that in itself was an engine, like even South Phelps Drive, where it says, welcome to downtown, all that, there was spending each year to do that. So that roughly $400,000 went away, and that, to me, is kind of a dagger in the heart of trying to create a downtown.
Well, what do we have to do to get it back?
Change the Constitution.
Yeah,
Is what?
Change the-
Changing the Arizona Constitution?
Yeah, it has to go to the voters.
yeah.
And basically, the litigation was pretty nasty. You could blame it on former Treasurer Doolittle and also former County Attorney Jim Walsh. They're the ones who stopped it. And then we got into a battle with them, and then they strung us along for 2 years before we ended up suing them. And we teamed up with Casa Grande because they also had a TIF district in their downtown, which they established it at the same time we did. And we did get it for about 10 years. And then they basically stopped it. And then we had a nasty lawsuit, and it ended up costing the city, just to fight the battle, about $250,000 to $300,000 in attorney fees. They won. They got a very, very expensive attorney. More than me, Larry, okay? More than me. They got an attorney who made $1,000 an hour, approximately $750 to $1,000 an hour, and they did that to dissuade us from the lawsuit. So, and they got one of the most vicious law firms that I can remember in recent times. So to get it to, basically, and it went to Maricopa County, unfortunately, and Judge Brain, he's the one who decided the case, and he basically said TIF is illegal in this state, and we'd have to change the Constitution. It goes back to a case from 1982 involving Tucson's TIF. So that dealt with bonds mostly, How do you fund bonds? Can you do it with TIF money? That's basically what it came down to. So to change it, there's a constitutional provision that would have to be changed, and it would have to go to the voters at large of the state. It's not going to happen.
So is there any backdoor approach that we
There is
use?
not. Believe me, we tried everything we possibly could, and even the League of Cities and Towns didn't really back us.
Tucson has a TIF-like setup with Rio, whatever it's called.
The defunct Rio Salado, that one?
No, they recreated it, and it's got
Yeah,
a whole
well.
different board.
Yes.
And that attorney Lazarus or whatever, she was on that board.
No, they
and
still don't have,
It's still alive, but it's in a different, it's almost like a district.
but it was different than an actual TIF based
I
on,
think
based
yeah.
on property taxes. It was based on bonding, I believe.
Yeah, so I think they got rid of it, reconstituted, created like a board that's a public-private board that managed the whole thing. So a lot of the stuff you see in Tucson, the urban streetcar, all that was funded with a district-like, I guess is kind of maybe way to call it. But there are ways for cities to have bid districts, business improvement districts. Again, that also takes a vote, I believe. You got to get a number of people to sign it. State legislature changed that. Phoenix tried to create one at Roosevelt Row, pulled the legs out from underneath them while they were trying to do that during, and they got to like redo it now because they changed the state law. So there's not an appetite in the legislature to help cities.
What about revitalization through the federal government? Is that an
Well, we
avenue?
don't get much federal block grant money. We have to go to the state to get it. But a lot of cities use community development block grant monies for infrastructure. In blighted areas, you can use it, certain things. So again, it's not, to me, it's weird that it's one of the only state in the union that can't do it. So I don't know, again, I don't know enough about why the Constitution. I thought the Constitution here is not much different than New Mexico and some of these other late-coming states, but I think it's the legislature has just said, you know, there's a gift clause thing in the Constitution that you can't give money away, but the way these were structured, it's for public infrastructure. It's not to give developers money,
Yep.
but to do public infrastructure. They can be successful, they can create, they can really be an engine, but
Oh, I know.
so
'cause
talk
it-
to your legislator, maybe, that would be the good advice.
Suffice it to say, between you and Joel and Rudy, I think you're getting every penny we can if there's some source, right?
If there would be any, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
is
Yeah,
that-
even the GIPLET thing, which is another discussion, that used to be a 30-year thing, it's down to 8 years. They'll probably try to do away with that. That's where the city would own the land, and then we could lease it or gift it to a developer, or lease it to a developer, and then the taxes, the excise tax that they would pay, we kind of give it back to them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how all of Tempe has been done, and so legislators are looking at, geez, that doesn't look right either. It seems like we're giving money away, but phenomenal things can happen with some of those economic development tools.
Anyone else? Okay. Sydney?
Okay. The chapter also talks about tourism, and in a couple of ways, either shopping tourism or through really destination tourism. We have Superstition Mountains, and we have the lakes nearby, and how we should take advantage of that, especially since we're so highly reliant on sales tax, and we don't really have a property tax here. The next.
One thing in this paragraph.
Uh-huh.
Now, some of these, as I was reading these chapters, I don't know whether it would apply here or down in the next chapter. There's more. But in this third one, the second one under tourism, should we mention, it says the more time people spend in the area, the more money they spend as
spend.
the city. Oh, talking about the volatile sales tax
Yep.
is critical for the city. And like I said, this might not apply here, it might be better in the next chapter. But a thought I had was somewhere we need to mention in there for future, anybody reading this, is places like everybody shopping online and Amazon and all that, that the less sales taxes AJs will be receiving in the future.
Yeah.
It seems to be a trend towards that.
Yeah, I think we actually
Huh?
talk about that in the economic development element.
Okay.
Yeah. The chapter also talks about walkability and what that looks like. It's shorter blocks, mix of land uses. The design of streets are at a low speed, and then architectural design the building entrances are pointed towards the street, so there's really movement and activity at the street level.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
going to the streets and walkability, obviously finances are an issue, but has there ever been any discussion at any point in time, or even thought about, putting walkways, bridges over, a la Las Vegas, going over the major, over the trail?
Commissioner Cron, not that I know of.
No, we spent some time talking just about Apache Trail, between 88 Idaho Road going west, trying to make that 6-lane road more walkable,
Right.
having some on-street parking perhaps, doing something in the median. And I know we're doing some median projects right now. There has been landscaping that was paid by TIF in that area. But more along Apache Trail as opposed to, say, North Apache Trail over to the east side of Idaho at this point. Part of what this document talks about is that over time, there had been about 6 or 8 or 9 different planning documents that dealt with downtown. So what we tried to do with this element is kind of distill those down into what were the themes in all those 7 or 8 or 9 documents. I don't recall that ever coming. There was a plan at one time to take Idaho, like behind CAC campus, and then reconnect it when a developer was talking about major development before the recession. That's the only, actually moving Idaho to the east and creating a downtown. But the economy fizzled, and that may have been a pipe dream anyway. But anyway, the whole theme of this element was to try to take these 7 or 8 or 9 different documents, distill it down into something that can kind of explain kind of where we came from, where we need to go.
Right.
But they are common, but you have to have a lot of pedestrian activity like you would see at Arizona State. They have one of those, that bridge was probably built in the 60s or something, but
Well, when I
it's
saw
not
that-
certainly uncommon.
When I saw that as far as walkability and the distance in between crosswalks and everything else, I'm thinking, has this ever been discussed before? I don't recall anything in my time with the city, but then that wasn't my purview back then either.
Right.
So it was just something that,
Usually what people try first is to kind of make the street more inviting, so there are more people walking. You can narrow up at the intersection, so it's easier to cross, but you're talking a couple $1 million to build a overpass. It might not be practical at this point.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Tunnels are really, nobody uses a tunnel either. I mean,
Yeah.
they're talked about, but on a bike trail, people will use them, but not for people to walk under a 6-lane road. They just don't feel safe in there.
Wait for monsoon
Well,
season.
In monsoon.
It'll fill up.
while we're on that same subject, I put this over on the next page on goal 4.6, where it's about creating a main street. But it applies back here too. There's no mention of reducing the number of lanes and putting in a wider walking corridor down the center of the trail. I know we've discussed that before, where maybe having the parking.
Wasn't that in the
It's
transportation?
in the active transportation plan,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but we don't even mention it here.
Yeah, we could reinforce it here,
I think goal 4.6 is
the place to do it.
is the place to do it, that's what we want to do for our main street.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
The planning considerations talks about the document that Larry was speaking about, creating really a master plan that encompasses really the overall vision and strategy for the future growth of the downtown. And it's mentioned again as the first goal, and really taking all those documents and put them as one. Does anybody have any comments regarding the goals or the other sections in this chapter?
Yeah, I have
I
on
do.
4.8 and 4.9, I'm not sure exactly how, but can we somehow nicely, where you're saying in 4.8, discourage this and discourage and encourage, what about discouraging more tire stores and thrift stores?
Encouraging fewer, you mean?
Somehow nicely Just a thought.
Well, would that be, is that just for the downtown, you're saying?
I think especially, I think, who wants to come to a city where the only thing that's on their main street to go shopping for is tire stores and thrift stores?
So,
And
yeah, I don't know, it
automobile
could be
places.
here, it
Huh?
could here, or I guess in the next,
Wherever you
in
want
the
to put it.
economic development element to encourage certain land uses, discourage
Well,
others.
this is just
That
the
was for,
downtown area.
yeah,
This chapter here is just for downtown.
right, but
But
I mean,
specifically, in terms of the zoning code, I think they're allowed in the B3, so maybe in the B3, we say we don't want them.
you
The
know,
ones that are here now are here, but,
they're here, but I mean,
yeah.
if you're going to want to envision a downtown where you're going to get people, want to draw people there, you're not gonna draw them there with thrift stores and tire stores.
So I think maybe a policy would be something to, whether it's under 9 or 7, 4.7 or 4.9, put something in there about,
Okay.
you know, revisit the allowed uses in the B3 district, rather than just call out tire stores.
Well,
There may be some other uses that are currently in there or that we haven't thought about. We are planning to go through and eliminate some of the uses that are currently allowed. For example, assisted living is allowed in the downtown. Usually not a good idea to have in the downtown assisted living, because once you're there, you usually don't get out and do the walkability thing. There's certainly an appropriate land use, but not in the downtown. So those, I think, maybe provide a balance of land uses, maybe a number 4 or something that would say, you know, revisit or examine the allowed uses in B3 and prohibit uses that are not conducive to tourism,
right.
walkability, et cetera.
I mean, if that's what we want for a downtown, I think we need to start looking at the business list and say, make a list for
Check cashing
downtown.
probably isn't a good idea
Yeah.
in your downtown. And again, I think we can do that in the zoning code and just say, we'll address it in the zoning code, but we should strongly look at the uses that support those themes and goals up above.
Yeah,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Larry, what's the viability of creating an entertainment district or just a downtown district zoning code in and of itself?
Well, the B3 does that, but it does offer, right now, as we use the terminology here, a wide palette of uses, and maybe you want to
Less
narrow that in.
width?
And that's kind of what I'm
And
thinking.
then you can also encourage them by kind of streamlining, saying, well, you don't need a conditional use permit if you want to do this, it's allowed by right.
That's,
Okay, I guess that's probably
How would you
what I'm getting at. Can we, I mean, as far as
For
restricting
downtown.
to a certain, that certain area, that downtown area where you essentially want to have an entertainment district, that we actually specify these types of businesses are allowed in this square area or whatever,
Right.
and zone for that.
So we even had discussions with folks that wanted to put wine tasting rooms, and our code isn't exactly, so it's like, well, maybe we gotta make an amendment, or maybe it's a CUP, but those types of things, if we're trying to encourage them, you shouldn't have to go through an extra step just to get them in the code, or, so I wholeheartedly agree with you to,
I mean, the palette of uses maybe just needs to be changed
Yeah.
for downtown.
right.
And how
Yes.
hard is that to do? I mean,
No,
does that need to go to that doesn't need to go to a citizen vote, does it? Just has to
No,
be
no,
approved by
changing the zoning code does not, goes through here and then the council.
in the council, okay.
So you would list, we have a table of uses by each zoning district, and we can have ones that are inclusive or exclusive.
But it's subject to referendum,
It's what?
subject to referendum by the people.
Well, of course,
Yeah,
everything
if they
we do is,
protested, yeah.
your turn.
You can't even create different
Jump in.
zoning for just the downtown.
We have that. We have a B3 district. So we had a CCD, I think it was called at one time. Now it's a B3.
Where maybe you build some of those special uses into it automatically, so you don't have to get a conditional use.
Well, right now, for example, multifamily in the downtown takes a conditional use. Maybe you want to say that multifamily in the downtown doesn't need conditional use.
Or
It's a
make it
permitted
its own
use.
separate zone, and just make that into that zoning.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is right now, for example, multifamily takes a conditional use. Maybe you want to change it to, it's a permitted use in the downtown because you want density.
Yeah.
Right.
You might not want it on every corner, but you want it within a proximity that you wouldn't need to go through an extra step, even though it's only a month or two. but,
Put that in your notes.
okay. I
Madam
think
Chair.
Sydney wrote that down. Sydney wrote it down.
Sydney,
And Rudy, too.
this map, downtown map, just for my edification, how many squares, whatever measurement you want to use, is the downtown? That's highlighted here.
How many square miles?
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'd have to
Square
get with our
acres or
GIS
something.
people and give you the exact number. I could have that by next meeting.
I guess my question for asking that is this a normal size for a downtown, for a city of our size?
Commissioner McGraw, I'm not sure if it's a normal size, but the intended boundary was to really pick what was in proximity of the center there, which is the Grand Hotel site, and all the things that we wanted to get redeveloped.
I'm just wondering if we're biting off more than we can chew, if we want to actually see things happen, if we've
Sure.
got so much in front of us to try to figure out what to do with.
Sure.
By decreasing the size of this. Has there been any thoughts about that, decreasing the size of this boundary to more manageable?
Sure, that's something that we could definitely take a look at.
If we go back to just using township range type stuff, keep that up.
Yeah.
So let me borrow the mouse here a bit. So this square right here, that's 40 acres. That's the county site. So this is 160 acres. That's a quarter mile. So from here to here is a quarter mile. A lot of planners talk about things being within a quarter mile walk distance. So I will park my car once and I will go visit stuff, but I'm not going to walk more than a quarter mile. So I think this is appropriate for the size of a downtown. Over time, again, this is, mobile home park from the 60s maybe, that could get redone. We have just historically kind of kept this whole area of Apache Trail as kind of you're entering downtown. This starts at Ironwood. But I think of what somebody might walk to, that's 1,320 feet, quarter mile. So I think,
Well, actually, it's
And-
half a mile.
huh?
From
Oh,
Idaho
half
to
here.
Royal Palm, it's half a mile.
That's a half mile.
So
2,600 square feet, 2,600, so.
This
feet.
land area represents maybe about a mile and a half square, as far as land area.
Okay, that doesn't sound too off.
Yeah,
That,
and-
all of that purple you're
Yes.
saying.
Yeah.
So it's not that much.
And
It
land
just looks like
uses,
a lot.
again, I was saying the other night, you have a post office down here. You have government uses, typically you're in a downtown. Drugstores, grocery stores, those are ours is just a little more spread out land-wise, like a Fry's versus, a small 40,000 square foot grocery store. But
Okay. All right.
barber shops, taverns, restaurants, the land uses are all here. They're just, some are, like in this particular shopping center, really, really old,
Thank you.
so.
And I want to go back to goal 4.2, where we get into that established architectural branding, placemaking, and tourism. Here again, we need to be flying that flag, that logo flag. We need to be seeing that everywhere in this city. That flag should be flying, and we should be branding ourselves. In my hometown, Indianapolis, there's a big circle in the flag, and that's flown everywhere, and it's known as Circle City. You see that, you know that's Indianapolis. So here again, we need to be branding ourselves. We need to be flying that flag, touting our Apache Junction. Another rant.
Madam Chair, I have a
Yes.
question. All right, Sydney, I have a question on 4.5. So it says, provide incentives for landlords to maintain and modernize their properties. I think one of the things that is just so discouraging is you see some of these properties, these businesses and all that are just in horrific shape. I'm curious, what do you mean by how do you incentivize? I mean, it seems to me, I'd rather we lay the lumber on these owners who are out of state and don't really care at all about the appearance of their properties. as opposed to incentivizing them. But I'm just curious, how do you incent someone to?
Sure. Well, a couple of ways, what I've seen in terms of redevelopment in other cities is sometimes there's expedited plan review, sometimes permit fees are discounted to encourage redevelopment. So those are two ways to do it. Yeah.
The city has provided those sales tax agreements that have to go through fairly rigorous review, but if someone came in and said, okay, I'm gonna fix up the shopping center, and we would reimburse them sales tax. Again, it comes out of the general fund, but it's a tool, but it's not, easily done, or, you have to have, we've done it a couple times, not lately, but again, it has to meet some sort of public purpose test to say we can't just hand out money, but there has to be a public benefit to reimbursing them some sort of sales tax that they're gonna create. But again, there are the incentive, we used to have, I think, I saw you, when all this was happening, it had like 12 or so different incentives. Most of those are kind of all been taken away from cities.
Question, do we have a landlord registry here in this city?
We do not have a landlord registry.
Why?
Well, we can get the list from the county. You talking about for apartments or rental property, or?
And any rental property?
Yeah,
where
you
we
can't
have-
have a rental inspection program in Arizona, I don't believe, can you?
No, I'm not talking about a rental inspection, I'm talking about a
The
registry.
registry, we can go to the county and we can go to our business license folks and know who rents property out. But, the underlying property owner, we would know who they are.
But that doesn't do much good, does it really? Because most people who own a house, they just rent it out. They never tell the city they're renting it out, even though they're supposed to, and get a license.
Yeah. But in terms of commercial,
Yeah.
we pretty much know who the property owners are and who's running the show.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Larry, the property on the west side of Wells Fargo, where the roadway is so messed up that half the people who drive through it have to have their car realigned at some point during the course of a year.
you talking the parking lot?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
That's an
Yeah, I know.
unplatted, it's an unplatted
I,
area.
Private property.
Yeah.
and I understand that, but it's been sitting that way for years and years and years.
But nobody's
And,
you
and-
don't have to drive there.
in some instances, you do to go a certain place, unless you're gonna go around. I would agree with that. You don't have to go that way.
We've had
But-
discussions with the realtor for the owner and kind of trying to convince them, like when Discount Tire went in, that you really need to do a subdivision there, you need to create driveways. I mean, it will happen eventually. You'd think that with the other development happening, they would just go do it and create, so then someone would want to go there. So it's tough to sell something you can't imagine, but if they went in there and created parcels and put in curb and gutter and sidewalk and landscaping, some of those parcels might fill in.
Right. That's one of the things I was thinking about. How do you incentivize someone who really,
Yeah, sometimes the
they just don't
incentive,
want to?
the incentive is to write them a citation like we did with the old Bash's Shopping Center, because they had potholes everywhere, and we had a warrant out for the arrest for the guy for a year and a half, but he lived in New York, he wasn't coming out here, but his son decided, okay, we'll finally fix it up, and then we'll put a fence up between us. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, short of, a lot of cities have, dust control type ordinances. You can't just leave a vacant lot just
Right.
all dusty like that, that you gotta have better dust control even for undeveloped lots. But we still have a lot of undeveloped property that's kind of,
Or if you don't fix it up, it's seized. The city seizes it.
yeah, the city could, if somebody gifted that land to the city, maybe the city puts it in a capital improvement program, and then we build the road, and maybe that, we get ourselves paid back when property develops in their sales tax. But
Yeah.
again, the city doesn't have a lot of money to go out and just,
Right.
build a $2 million road through there.
I think they got signs up selling that property, don't they, now?
Correct, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, it's probably about 2 years ago, we had a conversation before Discount Tire went in there
Right.
about, hey, how about doing a full-blown plat like Fry's did, coming up with a development plan, creating those pods or parcels that, lots that people could go put up, Dutch Bros on. Because you're not, there's nothing, you're not selling much if it's just all dirt and potholes and one speed bump.
Potholes.
Yeah. You're selling potholes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay.
It's
Good thing there's a tire
Yeah.
store there.
A tire store.
I knew there was a good reason to put a tire store within there.
Larry, on 4.7, number 3, can you explain as far as the partner with Bureau of Land, BLM, ASLD to convert downtown to open space and recreational trails? I'm not sure how how that works downtown. I know
I
there's
think
some.
if you look at the map, that area that is ASLD land just outside the door here,
Right,
there have been talks about a trailhead on that land that is owned by the BLM. It has what's called a patent or a lease to the county, so all the county property, there's a 22-acre parcel southeast of the roundabout that's still BLM ownership, but they have, I think, a 99-year patent or something with the county. So there has been talks of like a park or a trailhead there. That's kind of what that refers to. So there have been discussions in other planning venues. I think we tried to reinforce it maybe in the active transportation plan. But that theme comes out is if we are a horse community, people might, instead of having trailheads, you know, further out, that if you could have a trailhead here, people might launch from here or go out and do a ride and come back and then go to a restaurant or something like that and get
and then
some of
maybe
that.
market it as the trailhead for the Apache Trail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
right. So that's what that's referring to.
Okay, I was curious about that. You kind of answered
So
that
maybe,
the other
maybe,
night, but
maybe
I
we
just
could
wanted to
say,
clarify.
partner with BLM and ASLD to, it's really not convert downtown, but to maybe promote
Promote, yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
promote downtown to provide, and it's really linkage, it's linkage to other trails, to promote downtown.
So essentially like a.
And
like
create a
trail
linkage
hub?
to open space and, yeah.
Why don't you just
yeah,
create a trailhead?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I like that.
You're a horsey person.
Yeah, as I said, hey.
There's no other city that can actually say that they are the trailhead for the
Yeah.
Apache Trail.
Why not?
And we don't market that. And we
We're back
don't
to
market, we have the
branding.
best views of the superstitions, and we don't market that.
We're back to branding.
It is.
Don't get
It
her started.
absolutely
No.
is.
I
But
know, but I like that idea,
Yeah, actually, that does.
saying that, you know, put it out officially that that's a trailhead for the Apache Trail. That's pretty cool.
so that was the whole idea going back to the first goal, is you have these 7 or 8 or 9 documents that were good for the time they were good, but someone does another plan or something 10 years later, and, you know, I guess our staff recommendation, that most general plans don't even have a downtown element, so we thought it was important enough to put a downtown element in the plan, and then the first goal was to create a downtown master plan that gets all these documents
Yeah.
kind of rowing in the same direction.
That's why I think it's important in some of these places to specifically state some of this stuff, because we're doing this now, but 10 years from now, you guys might not be here, we might not be here, it'll be different people, and they won't have any clue why we said what we
We
said,
did.
Right.
you know? So we need to add some specifics and not be always generic.
General.
Yeah.
And on
Okay.
goal,
Anybody else?
yeah, on
Oh.
goal 4.9, attract a diverse mix of business types. We're looking at policy, actively support the reestablishment of TIF in Arizona to fund downtown and brownfield development. So here we are, we're back to the dog now is chasing its tail. So how do we approach reestablishment of TIF? Joel, how do we do
Might be
that?
called something different, but
Well, That could be, I think it's a state level thing. I think it would take legislators who would have to put it through the legislature and make it available for every city and town, not just this one. So,
It's kind of like that 3,000 units that don't pay property tax. That's a statewide issue.
Okay.
We can bring it to people's attention, but we need a lot of other people saying, hey, this is a big issue statewide.
Madam Chair. Do our current state legislators know, are they aware of these issues? Because I know
well,
our two state representatives are usually off on other tangents. I've never once heard either one of them speak about anything like this. And I don't know about our state senator.
when it comes to TIF, they were aware of it and they didn't help us at all. The ones that, at that time.
Well, at that time, I'm saying current.
Yeah.
Are they aware?
I have no idea. I mean, some of the opinions are actually more extreme against cities and towns. They don't like cities and towns, so they're not gonna help cities and towns on anything to do with TIF.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If TIF's so hard, is there any other way?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to
That's what I'm
grab
saying.
that high fruit that we may
That's what
never
I'm
ever
saying.
reach, what else can we do as a city?
I still have got like this much stuff to go through when that lady talked about how this thing was created in Tucson. It is like it's a special animal, but it has a lot of oversight, and they had to get the school district involved and set up this public-private board. It's almost like it's a foundation-type board, but,
It's a tank,
huh?
a TANC. That's where you're getting into neighborhood coalitions.
Yeah.
And you're putting that all together, and you're through those groups, you kind of form a foundation, and you get your money through various resources, like in Indianapolis, one would be Eli Lilly or State Farm. So here again, that's another avenue. But it's kind of like, and they call it a tank.
I'm just saying, instead of listing TIF in here, maybe we list other,
Yeah.
that way we're not chasing our tail on,
Exactly,
because I mean, what's the realistic of this changing in the next 10 years?
yeah, exactly.
What do we need to do to
Let's put
find
some
out things
realistic
like that?
goal under there instead.
What, another
Yeah,
mechanism?
other mechanisms, other sources of
You can
income,
say
other,
reestablishment of TIF or other mechanism.
Yes.
I mean, but what do you have to actually do to see about doing something? I mean,
You have to go talk to legislators. I mean,
Okay.
what's available today are, everybody knows what the tools are. You have this GIPLET thing, you have a business improvement district, and that's about it.
So maybe we
And you
list
can
that
do
for
these
TIF.
sales tax reimbursement agreements. So the laundry list of incentives and things like that, that can incent a business per se, or the business improvement, they have to agree to tax themselves
yeah,
for street sweeping or whatever they decide their improvement district's gonna be.
Yeah.
But maybe there's some other kind of district that can get formed that,
Exactly.
because we've talked about, when we were talking about development fees, is that Queen Creek's has a construction sales tax of 4.5%, and ours is 2.4. So back in the day, before the law changed, they went and said, hey, all this growth is coming out here, we're gonna increase our construction sales tax. So a lot of stuff you see, all the niceties that are happening in Queen Creek, it's because their construction sales tax is twice what ours is. And so now they have a whole new funding source, and they can say, okay, we're gonna take some of that construction sales tax and spend it here, because it's discretionary. But now it has to go to the voters, or if we do increase our construction sales tax, maybe our development fee has to come down commensurate with the amount we raise, because we're gonna use construction sales tax for things like, police, libraries, parks, or roads. So you'd almost have to offset any increase in construction sales tax by lowering your development fees. Well, then that's kind of why would we go do that? We've also, there's been discussions of saying, okay, all this development's gonna happen south of the 60, can we peel off a little bit of sales tax and spend it downtown? Those are things that have been talked about, but that hasn't happened yet. But that would be a policy decision of the council. We're gonna take, instead of, we have to have 0.2% for roads, we have to have 0.2% for the public safety retirement system for the next X number of years. So now we're talking 2%. So 2% of that, we're gonna say, anything south of the 60, of the 2% that we get, maybe it's construction sales tax, we're gonna spend 0.5% in the downtown. Those are policy, maybe that's, again, this plan isn't gonna solve all our problems. It can identify them perhaps, but maybe a particular funding source to get it further down the road. I'm not saying don't put it in here, but maybe it's in some new downtown master plan. The downtown master plan, if you're gonna have to make it work, you're gonna need funding, so then there's a policy discussion that says we're gonna take a portion of our construction sales tax or our regular sales tax, and we're gonna spend it just in this geographic area.
But-
Maybe that somebody would fight that too, but.
My question, though, was a little more than just putting it here, saying, you know, the policy is to actively support the whatever, whether it's TIF or something else. But what do you do? I mean, do we just leave it up to you guys, and that's for you to go talk to state legislators? I mean, how do you facilitate
Start with the
this?
Goldwater Institute, that's who you go talk to first. You actually would go, you'd have to work with the League of Cities, probably work with the Goldwater Institute, because they're the ones that are gonna fight it, right? So basically craft legislation that they would agree to. They're the ones that are suing for the regional transportation thing, right?
Okay.
So I heard this zoning guy from Flagstaff, he spoke at a conference, and they were gonna restrict signage in Flagstaff by saying you can't put signs in the right-of-way. And so in Flagstaff, during political season, no political signs are in the right-of-way. But there's a state law that says we can't remove them if they're in the right-of-way. And they just said, we're gonna ban them, can't put anything in the public right-of-way. That guy drove down to Phoenix, sat in the guy's office from the Goldwater Institute and said, we're gonna go do this, what do you think? And I guess Goldwater helped them draft the ordinance that they wouldn't fight. So it's gonna be a coalition of people. You know, you gotta get people in the room that are willing to talk about, who are your allies? In some states, counties can even do TIF, so maybe counties are an ally. And who would argue against cleaning up the environment that was some polluted tannery that you could turn into cool-looking row housing? Who would argue that there's not enough, the dollars don't make sense? So now you can use TIF to go do the environmental remediation and then go, you know, put in cool row houses or something. I mean, but again, there are no friends in the legislature that
Okay.
we typically can count on.
Well, that's what I was wondering, what do we do,
Yeah.
though? Who's the people? You, us, city council? Who actually has to do
Start
what?
with Casa Grande, I guess we would start with our friends in Casa Grande for that,
Yeah,
maybe,
we
I don't
can't
know. But
form a
to me, there's 94 towns and cities, you know, I don't even know how much respect the Arizona League of Cities and Towns even get in the legislature. Yeah, they have a lobbyist, but they pass resolutions, they're gonna have a conference on August 20th, and they'll have a platform to go to the legislature, and very little, if any, of it will ever get passed. So
But-
counties, sometimes counties have more, you know, I've seen that in another state I work with. The counties had better luck with the state legislature than towns and cities. Counties went down and said, hey, you know, hey, why can't we have TIF? And somebody said, oh yeah, it's a good idea, go do it. So, again, you gotta figure out who might be your allies. So I don't have a quick answer to who all should be there, but I'm guessing it could be the League of the 13 or 14, however many counties, we have 15 counties.
In this document, though, are we just leaving it up to you, planning, development staff, to initiate this?
Well, again, if this goes to the council would say, we could have a direction to staff someday at the council
Okay.
level that would say, yeah, this is a good idea, and somebody brings it back, we kind of refine it a little bit and say, yeah, here's really what we're trying to do, and
Okay.
then,
I mean, I know Rudy's just sitting over there going, yeah, I want more work, come on, create, give me some more work to do to create this,
Or this would be,
So-
this would be your economic development and your city manager's purvey too.
so
where
for
they can get
downtown,
involved.
without a lot of incentives, and zoning is kind of our only tool. So that's what we tried to do. We said, okay, this is a B3, that's our downtown district, and then I guess let the economy, the economics of it, but it doesn't work if you can't, the developer doesn't want to pay for all the cool-looking brick pavers and the streets and the banners and the decorative lights. they're hoping the city does that, and that's what TIF does. The
Exactly.
city sets the table, makes it all look pretty, and then the developer comes.
Exactly. So you set the table.
That's what we're trying to, that's,
Yeah, exactly.
we're trying to do that now without TIF. We went and built a city park for $700,000, so now we don't have TIF. TIF could have paid for that maybe. City spends 700 grand on a park in the hopes that it might get a developer to say, yeah, that's pretty cool. I want to build some multifamily overlooking that park. But that's as far as we can, don't have money to build the trail next to it.
Can the city sell like pavers and stuff to put in some projects like that?
We've
Yeah.
done that. That's not going to raise you a lot of money. We
No.
did that for
No,
the
I'm
focal
just-
Friends
point.
still
Different
get-
ideas
You can buy
along.
pavers now for the
Yeah, you still
the
can.
Focal point.
yeah.
$75 or whatever it is, but it doesn't bring in a lot of money.
Not really publicized either.
Yeah, the other
Yeah.
thing, if the city had a lot of money, which we don't, the city could do a citywide bond issue. You can put a bond on the ballot and say, okay, we're gonna go borrow $4 million to go do a downtown and sell that to the voters, and then the city could borrow money and pay it back with sales tax or something and say, well, we're gonna make Idaho look nice between Apache Trail and North Apache Trail. You know, do streetscaping. We can do some of those public improvements.
But
Just
here
like
again,
cities have referendums to make better parks or fund their police department or whatever it might be.
that has to go to council though, for.
That starts there, yeah. They
it
make all the
starts, yes,
decisions about, you
exactly.
know, should we go out and
Exactly.
borrow a bunch of money and
Exactly.
try to create a downtown because there's no savior coming in on a white horse with TIF. It's
Exactly.
just not, that's like a 5 or 10 year.
We can have
proposition.
steak at the table instead of hamburger.
So what the legislature gave us, they took us away when they said, well, we're not gonna have TIF anymore. Okay,
Anybody else? Okay, proceeds.
Okay, we'll move on to the economic development element, chapter number 5. The introduction really just gives us a demographic overview. It talks a little bit about how Apache Junction is really really a bedroom community on the outskirts of the Phoenix Metro. If we go to the second page under conditions, issues, and opportunities, on the top of the page, actually, before that, one of the things I want to point out is that the economic development team took a look at where our people are going to find jobs, and it looks like 90% of our existing workforce that resides in Apache Junction is leaving the community for work. So that's a really big concern. So that is really the definition of a bedroom community. Under conditions, issues, and opportunities, we talk about how high-density housing helps attract businesses that bring jobs. So, you know,
Madam Chair,
Yes,
touching on that point right there, strong local resistance to affordable high density. What's the current plan on dealing with that resistance, or is there one?
well, during the survey, it was pretty clear. You asked the question, would you like high-density housing downtown? And everybody said no,
yeah.
even though it's zoned for it. South of the 60, do you want high-density housing? I think there was a resounding no. I mean, but that's where multifamily goes, is usually like along a
Right.
corridor like Ironwood or
Right.
along the
well, that's where
Route 20
high density should be.
But
and in your downtown.
But
Yeah.
with the resistance, what kind of plan is there to change minds, or is there one? Or to work some type of compromise? Is there any?
I think a lot of it just has to deal with design.
Correct.
So if it looks nice, it looks cool,
Yeah,
but even in cities that have added a lot of higher density housing, citizens are starting to say, no, we don't want 10 more apartment buildings. So we don't even have, we have 2 right now, I
Yeah.
think.
but I mean, you know, what I wonder about is the public really anti-high density, or are they just anti, in general, high density? You know what I mean? They don't really care if there's apartment buildings. If we built them, you know, they're not gonna complain about it. But if you ask the question, like you said, you know, are you for or against? They're gonna say they're against, because they're just generally against high density.
And I know that's true east of Idaho.
Yeah.
And I know that there was a lot of people that were for, now I can't remember the name of it, over on Royal Palm and Old West Highway when that was built.
Oh, the,
There was a lot of
apartments.
people that were looking forward to that until they found out they were bringing in Section 8 or allowing Section 8, and then that turned off a lot of people, angered a lot of people, and there may be some residual feelings from that still in this, in
Well,
town.
there's been several projects now since then. I mean, the crossings probably came after that,
No,
not even.
crossings came before that.
Okay, well, the two across the street here that were townhomes, that's workforce housing. So when people say Section 8 or low income, it's people that are bagging, you need these people to have jobs in your neighborhood. They're bagging your groceries at Fry's. Not everybody can live in a $250,000 house. You have to have a variety of housing stock for everybody. So yes, it's a educational thing. But I was saying 2 nights ago, a lot of people, if you look at our zoning map, we have high-density zoning in the Y.
Yes.
Very high-density zoning in the Y, it's 40 units an acre. Now, there's no sewer out there. It would've happened maybe a long time ago if the sewer pipes had been there, but it's out there. So that Y, I think, is gonna change between here and Royal Palm.
I'm just wondering
But
if
beyond that, it's gonna probably stay low.
I'm just thinking that discussion with the community, you already mentioned education, but I think that some type of compromise, working with people so they have the buy-in
Yeah.
and the understanding to be more agreeable to that. If there's not a plan in place, there should be one. And I have no idea how to go about doing that, but it's all about discussion, more community meetings maybe, I don't know.
One of the things that needs to happen is, like you're saying, there in the Y, it definitely needs the high-density apartments and all, because if your college is going to grow, it's
Yes.
going to need lots of apartments. You know, I think that those two things go very much hand
They
in
do,
hand.
but
But there's almost like, we've seen it before, this God-given right to the view of the mountain.
Well,
And so that drives a lot when we had the Superstition Commons, they were approved for 2-story, they were basement, and they said, well, hey, we're losing our shirt on this, can we come back and rezone the last
Yeah.
3 lots?
Yes.
And all heck broke loose
Yeah.
because someone was
Hell
gonna
of a
lose
loot.
their
Yes,
view of the
indeed.
mountain. But yet, to the east, they already lost it because they're already 2-story houses at Terramorado. So,
Well, go outside and look at the mountain.
even that. So I think we're gonna see multi-story development. Right now, it's allowed in the downtown, and if it's done quality, I think that's really what sets the tone. If it's not really well-designed, then people hate it, and it's gonna deteriorate over time, and then people will say, you're gonna ruin my property values, and so we have to insist on quality. That's
Right.
how we sell it.
I truly believe it's the type, the quality.
the quality, the
That
type, the
people-
look.
Nobody wants Section 8 housing in their backyard. People are always gonna fight that. But you put in stuff for like the college and stuff, I think people are more open to that, so.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at as far as a plan to bring that to the public. Is there a plan, is there a way to present it so it's more agreeable? So there's not the pushback like we're seeing.
Commissioner Kreidler, I think one way to alleviate the public's concern is really reinforcing the importance of design, and that is done through design guidelines and standards.
Okay.
So we could do that through residential and multifamily design standards, same thing with commercial and industrial standards, things like that.
Very good.
Madam Chair, I think another part of this has to do with education. For so long, Apache Junction has been centered around the Western theme. And I want my land, I want my property, I want my view of the mountains, or whatever their view is. That is very prominent in the community. Very, very prominent. There has to be something to help educate people to say, you can have that plus the other. And at this particular juncture, people only want what they are familiar with. And until the education aspect kicks in, and you have to keep educating people. You have to tell them, you have to tell them, you have to tell them. And then they have to see the designs. that come in there, but you can't just say, let's go talk about it. No, it's a continual thing.
Yeah.
That-
I
that-
think this plan altogether, where it talks, when I was reading through here, developing a style, a look for
Yeah.
everything,
Exactly.
and everything, it all goes together. We gotta bring this
Right.
together cohesively, so we have,
Right.
you know,
You've got everything working together.
yeah.
Commission, something else to think about. Other cities have, of course, those design standards that I just mentioned. And other cities also have design review boards. So if a complex exceeds, 50 units or et cetera, like Mesa does, then it has to be presented to the design review board. And they have a team of professionals, usually a few people on the commission, or on the board, are design professionals, either landscape architects or designers or, things like that. So something to think about.
Okay.
And here again, we're talking about there's no city property tax, and we're getting into sales tax generation,
That's right,
which we all recognize is fragile and regressive.
yes.
And here again, if you don't shop in Apache Junction loses the sales tax. And I have to be very honest with you, I'm guilty of that, because Apache Junction doesn't offer me what I want.
It's kind of a catch-22,
Exactly.
Right.
We need to shop local, but yet I can't shop local because there's no place here that's selling what I need.
That's
So
right.
I got to go down to Mesa to buy what I need,
Exactly.
which supports their parks and their police department and not ours. And,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a known dynamic where people from Gold Canyon kind of skip over AJ and just go to Mesa, right?
Yeah.
So, and in other conversations, other cities have had the same conversation, the same concern that they're losing shopping and tax dollars to, Amazon.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really easy to just click from home and it's
hey, I'm
there.
guilty of that.
I think
Oh,
everyone is.
Well,
So,
Me too.
that just backs the importance of, having a better retail presence here in downtown.
So,
But there again, it goes back to a lot of times we use Amazon or go to Fiesta, well, no, not Fiesta, well,
No,
Yes.
nobody
That's
goes
how
to
old I
Fiesta.
am.
Lord, good Lord.
Superstition.
how about Tri-City? Superstition
Superstition.
Springs. You gotta go there because there's nothing, you can't.
right,
I went to buy something just yesterday, and I went to a store, told them exactly what I wanted. They didn't have it, and she said, go down to Via Factory Outlet, on Power Road, they carry it, blah,
Okay.
blah, blah. That was the answer I got.
so,
Instead of them saying, oh, maybe we can get that product in and then we can sell it locally. No, just go down there.
And Commission, speaking about catch-22s, it's been my experience that quality design attracts other quality design and higher-end users. So having kind of those design standards in place ahead of time, and it kind of starts with the first person. Creating that theme will attract other high-end users and better businesses.
I agree. Yeah.
is there any,
Thank you.
is there any way at all that Apache Junction could ever have a city property tax? Or is that wool gathering?
That's a dirty word.
Probably the third rail in some cases, but, has it ever,
Or
I guess it
would
would
we
have to
run
go to the
into a
voters, right?
problem with
Would
the
have-
county?
Sales tax,
Discussion for another day.
property tax,
Yeah.
City property tax.
would
How many-
definitely, voters would have to approve it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
has to go
Okay.
to the voters.
And I think it was tried with the first formation ordinance, and the vote went down because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
There was also a utility provision that the voters didn't like, so it went down because of that. And so I think on the third try, the incorporators got rid of the property tax and the ability to do utility, because they thought that was gonna increase their monthly amounts, so. And then there was a incorporation effort in 1980 by
Oh,
some
yeah.
of the same people that
I don't know if
were
we
against the
know
city.
about that. People wanted to. The first city in the United States, wasn't it? That they wanted to, and actually were taking the steps to unincorporate Apache Junction.
Oh, wow,
Figures.
wow.
Yeah, I guess I, like Shirley's thinking, I don't know if there's a way to, at some point, to present to the residents of this city, hey, we got a dilemma here. I mean, I've been living here for almost 9 years, all I've ever heard is funding is so limited because we rely on sales tax, and that's getting more and more,
Fragile.
yeah, it's fragile, it's weak. So, and yet, a property tax would make a lot of this go away, but I know there's a lot.
Because there's all those mobile homes that don't have to pay property tax.
Well, but there are a lot of other folks that would be paying property tax, so, and I'm not talking about a massive one, but I don't know if there's a way to, as a presentation to say, here's the options, you know, I
So
mean.
Queen Creek has one just for public safety. I think it's a primary property tax. The secondary ones are when you do the bond issue, you know? So they have theirs $1.85 or 89 just for public safety, and I'm guessing that money goes to their fire department and then to Pinell County Sheriff to fund their public safety and down there. So that, usually, public safety is an easier sell. Then the question is, well, if we take that and fund it with property tax, then are you gonna lower your operating budget?
No, because then you turn that over and use it where you don't have the TIF
I'm
anymore.
just saying.
Right, I know, right, well,
But I'm
I-
saying that the taxpayer is gonna say, if we have a primary property tax for public safety, are you gonna lower your sales tax rate?
Right.
Because I don't wanna pay
Pay-
twice or
pay
whatever,
twice.
you know, but,
So we'd have to get creative with this,
well,
creative financing.
some people talk about it, early on. I saw one person that has the real job up there talk about it. They don't talk about it anymore, so, it is a third rail, so. But yeah, there's not any reason why you can't talk about it or make a statement in here. The city should consider it, or the city should set up an exploratory committee. I mean, I don't know what you do with it, but,
Something, some language.
yeah.
Well, that goes back to that one where I said, here, we talked about it, but we never said who's gonna do what. You know, back on
Yep.
policy,
Back to the
back
TIF.
to the TIF on 4.9.
Right.
Do we do something about it actively?
But Madam Chair,
Yeah.
doesn't this go right back to the council? It's really
Well,
them driving how they want to proceed with it.
well, right, but we're gonna make this, this is
Yeah.
like everything else.
Exactly.
We're gonna make recommendations. We're gonna put this together. This is gonna go to city council then to look at what we've said.
Exactly.
So now's the time to put in there what we think it should say.
Right, because they're elected officials, we're not, so
Yeah, you know.
they've
Thank
got
you.
to, they've
And-
got to
and
weigh
they-
out.
We're the volunteers.
Right, they've got to weigh.
That's kind of where I was going with that, though. As elected individuals and knowing what their constituency wants them to do, that may fall down on their priority list.
But that,
Even though it's in this plan, even though it's a good idea, even though it is something that people need to be considering, whether they like it or not, it's something that would benefit the city overall.
and that's their prerogative, but that's
And
also up
understand.
to us.
Understand?
Because we're doing the work for them and we should be saying, this should be done,
I'm,
and
Okay,
then
we're-
recommend it
I'm-
to
I'm-
them.
I'm not disagreeing
Goal
with that.
10.1.
yeah.
Skip
I'm not
ahead.
disagreeing
Sorry,
with that.
10.1?
Explore the possibility of implementing a minor property tax to diversify
Okay.
funding
Oh.
and
Okay.
accelerate.
So you got it in there.
Improvements.
That's in
See, we
there,
haven't
right.
read that
Because-
far.
yeah,
We don't
I
know
know.
what you know.
yeah.
Right, no, that's fine, I'm just,
Okay.
because I was thinking, well, do you want it in the economic development
No.
element? And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's
No.
in the cost of development element, and there it was,
I
and so.
agree, I
It's
think.
been a while
it just-
since I read
When
It
we
this.
just needs to be, it needs to be in here, because
Yeah,
I think
right.
there is an element here that we can't ignore, which is,
Right.
there's,
Yeah.
it would alleviate, pardon?
Funding sources.
Yeah,
That's
When
why I
when we
said
get to that
it's on-
chapter at
Be
9 o'clock, we'll already be on chapter 10. So we'll fine
Well,
tune
that's,
that.
bring that up. I mean, that's why I said earlier, I might be bringing up things here that don't belong here in this section.
Yeah,
Because it
that's okay.
should be addressed someplace
That's all
else.
right.
Okay,
Okay, good. We'll move
let's
on.
move on.
Anything on economic
Michael
development?
wants to move on.
You must be looking
Going
for
down
beer.
rabbit holes left and right around here.
So something that I wanted to point out in the following section here, well, still under conditions, issues, and opportunities, I want to bring up some good news. With Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport, we've seen an economic driver, and as that grows, that's going to bring other jobs and other people want to live close by, and we're near that.
Don't say if, say when.
Yes, absolutely, when.
What's
Um,
that I saw in the paper where somebody is gonna build something in Mesa? Why didn't they come out here? What was it? It was just this week's, the Independent that just came out,
I believe it's another manufacturing plant along
Yeah,
along
I'm
their
trying to
technology
think.
corridor, correct, yeah.
No, it wasn't Microsoft, who was it?
Microsoft is looking at 3 sites in
Okay.
Arizona,
They're looking
2 on the
for
west
sites.
side.
Yeah,
And,
one
yeah.
of them in Mesa. It's like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
what do we do to get them to come out here? We got lots of land.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, Google's putting some type of data center or something
Correct.
in Mesa.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
I was
It
gonna
all
say, I
goes
can't
back to
remember.
1980 when they didn't want to have water and sewer out here. I'm serious. If you don't control sewer and get ahead of it, that is really what is a driver.
You're
It's not
driving
just
for it.
roads, but it's
Yeah.
that water and sewer that is critically needed.
Well, yeah, because the
We're
developer's
still playing
not,
catch-up, basically.
Yeah.
with-
developer's not gonna come along out here and then have the city tell them, well, the sewer, the nearest connection is 2 miles away.
We can get
and
it
it's
for
gonna
you here
cost
in
you
about
$4
3
million
years.
to put the
Right.
sewer in,
Exactly.
you know? And Peter would say, with his business, he'd say, right?
Yeah, I would say it, but I can't here, because it'd get me thrown off the commission.
Okay,
Commissioner, we also talk a little bit about the opportunity zones, and we've actually seen an increase in interest in their downtown opportunity zones, so that's good. And then moving on to the next page.
wait a minute, which page where are you?
So we're
Oh,
on,
okay.
yep, right here, and we're also, of course, we're talking about the extension of the SR 24, and that's looking like it's moving forward. So that's going to bring new movement and new
Some-
transportation access to.
Somewhere
South
in
Bay
this
Bay.
section, in that, right up here at the top, I don't remember now where it goes. I have a note here that says, encourage CAC to build and offer complete degree programs. You still have to go to Coolidge or Mesa Community College in Mesa to get a degree. And I think that's one of the things, you can't get a developer to come and build apartments for students to live in unless you got a program. And if you've ever looked at their schedule, you know, it would take you 22 years to get an associate degree through CAC out here because they only offer one class. I want to be a full-time student, but there's this whole semester, there's only one class offered, you know, and I think, I mean, I remember when CAC first when they got that bond, do you remember, Rudy? I know you were here. How long ago was that? 20 years ago?
More or less, yeah.
And at that time, when they got that bond, didn't they say they'd have that whole campus completed in like 20 years?
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago? And all they ever did was build that administrative building and nothing since then. And now somewhere in here I read it says they expect to have CAC built in, somewhere in here, if you remember I read it, but I don't remember where it is, but they're talking about in another 20 years. But they already told it was to be done in 20 years. So is there anything we can do to encourage CAC to do something?
We could definitely have conversations with them and see what their long-term plan is
Really?
for
Because,
Spent
degree
money
growth.
already, I'm sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's our bond money that we approved, right? But they didn't seem to do much with it. So anyway, that's my,
And then lastly, our
Rant?
goal-
Was that your rant?
that was my, well, that was
Got a
one
lot
of
of
them.
rants going on here, don't we?
The females are
You know.
renting.
Well, it's not, you know,
and
still.
lastly, of course, of the goals and policies, does anybody have any comments or?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
All
do.
right.
I do.
I had this idea, another harebrained idea. Have we ever asked home developers like Kaufman, who comes here to our town to make money by building beautiful residential areas, but have we ever asked them to build business buildings and all to help bring in jobs which will then sell their homes? You know, I mean,
Not him in particular, that's not his forte.
yeah, but I mean, if he can build a house, he can build an office building or a complex and all. I mean, have we ever asked any home builders, the ones that want to build homes in our community, they could be helping us, like I said, building business buildings that will bring in, instead of 90% of the people who live here leaving to go get a job, there'd be more jobs here. which would help them sell their homes. You got me? So,
Yeah, most of the industrial parks are built by the private sector in Arizona.
I know, but I'm just saying that the idea
I'm
of
saying one mechanism that has worked in other places is you create a development corporation,
Yes.
nonprofit, and then that development corporation builds spec buildings
Yeah.
or build to suit or whatever, so they provide the financing, they work with a bank, or so there are regional, I don't think GPEC or anybody around here does that, where they're actually set up a nonprofit type corporation, they go out, build the spec building, and then they build it such that any kind of tenant can go in there and kind of,
yeah,
it's always usually kind of gotta go recruit the company, and then we got land, we got a shovel-ready site, but they don't have the building they can go into unless somebody just vacated it.
Right, of course, part of the problem is we have a lot of commercial space available right now that's not,
No, we're talking about more like light industrial or clean industry type thing.
Oh,
What you were
okay,
talking
all right,
about, Tess, that job,
whatever, anything.
because in theory, the housing developer would be interested in the housing, but they would sell more houses if there were ready
If there was
access to
businesses here
jobs.
for people to come here because there's a job, and if they've got a job here, they'd wanna rent or buy a house, and now Kaufman can sell more houses because he's built office buildings or whatever.
I'm just saying, but the office buildings, there's office
Well,
space
I
available in
think I
Apache
used
Junction that's
that
vacant,
term,
so, okay.
whatever you wanna
No,
build.
no.
Just
Okay.
an idea.
We have talked to a couple of developers, particularly in the downtown area where we're trying to encourage mixed use, about, setting aside, incorporating, commercial with their multifamily residential. So those discussions are on.
Okay.
And there are cities that have gone out and built industrial parks on their own.
Yeah.
And then get their money back when they sell the land, and they act like a developer because it's not happening, so they go make it
They'll
happen.
make it for-
But
maybe
those
you
are
need-
in 49 other states that have TIF.
I think there's a section of land that the city owns that they wanna split into 3 pieces of property, that they could sell that and then take that money and go buy some more and and all of
Build
a
an
sudden.
industrial building
Yeah.
at risk, I think I've seen it partnered with electric companies. So the power company has an interest in selling electricity, so they work with that development corporation, they put some money in, the city puts money in, and then they go build that spec building, and then the power company has a customer, but everybody puts a little money at risk, that some cities are just adverse to risk, so.
And that goes to my question on 5.4, every one of those policy things. And I have in my notes, I said, if you come, we will build it. And that goes back to the conversation we were having with all of this electric company doing these kinds of things and forming this development kind of corporation, which is kind of a nonprofit, but that's their business of doing the kinds of things that will attract people to come into Apache Junction, both from, particularly from the providing or building industrial spaces to providing entertainment centers. So if we go out and we actively and aggressively pursue some of these entrepreneurs, that's what I'm saying. If you come, we will build it. Another rant.
Yeah, the city has an industrial development authority. Some of you may even be on the board, and they have never, I can't remember, they met less often than the Board of Adjustment and Appeals.
Yeah.
But that's a tool that the city has to go do that. But again, it's a risk-taking endeavor where the city likely would go out, buy a piece of property from a private landowner, and then, I don't know if the city would issue bonds, but they have to have money to go buy it, and then the city has a vehicle, but it's not, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it has some mechanism to do that now, but it,
You
doesn't.
climb out on that limb.
huh?
You climb out on that limb and you take a risk.
Well, again, it's funding priorities. The city
Yes.
doesn't have a lot of money that it can put at risk.
Right. That's cool.
So, right, if you read the paper, we're putting $2.6 million into the Public Safety Retirement Fund.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
those monies, which again, they're all taken care of, they're deserved, whatever it may be, but that hinders our budget. But it's something we have to do. So we took part of our sales tax and went to go do that. So, you could say, well, we spent $225,000 on relining the pool, but it was a 20-year-old pool, we had to do it. So there's only so much money, you gotta set your priorities, and one of them at this point isn't making use of the Industrial Development Authority.
Madam
But
Chair.
there's not even a reference in this economic development element to that, so maybe we should ask Janine or something about maybe putting something under goal 5.2, align resources.
Yeah.
Maybe one of those is the IDA, but again, I don't know
Creating
enough
some
about that
language.
statute or how it works, or.
The more we have in here, the more specific things we have in here, the better.
Exactly.
Madam Chair.
Wait a minute, Peter. one
So,
minute.
question, I not heard anything about it recently. What about Resolution Copper? I know there was a time Mayor Surtee they were all over this. Congressman Gosar was all over. I mean, everybody was really into it.
Copper has gone down.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, I assume they're still going to,
There's another one
develop
down in Tucson that's even bigger than this mine, that's 4 times what the world needs, So it's copper's in Chile and in Arizona, and that big one, they're fighting that one down in Tucson because of its impact to a particular watershed
I'm
or
sure,
something.
yeah.
So this one is still going through, it's several $1 billion just to still get it up and going.
I was
but
looking at it from the standpoint of, if we're talking about all types of, attracting all types of investments, offering space for them to build stores and things that could supply this, not necessarily, I mean, I don't know to what degree, but is there some way that we could tie in with them to support that so that it would bring their business? I mean, they seem like they have a lot of money to spend.
Yeah, there's a couple mining-related businesses here, not that many. I don't know how that was gonna grow, or they're just waiting for 7 years from now when they actually get the permit to go, then they'll just oh yeah, they got a permit, now we can go count on that.
Well, the problem, one of the biggest problems I see here, I used to work at Kennedy Space Center. And working there, the University of Central Florida has a big programs in engineers, developing, for degreed engineers and all kinds of engineers. They were prepared for that, where here, again, I go back to CAC. Why aren't, they should have at least the first 2 years for engineering programs and things like that for a future employees of that. They don't seem to, CAC doesn't seem to be involved with anybody else but CAC,
Well, again, I think it's partly because you got 3 universities in this entire state, and there's not,
Yeah, but
there's just, ASU's gonna go do it if we go, you know what I mean? It
Yeah, but
seems
see,
to
they're
be-
missing out, and we, as a community, are missing out.
The cities are all over, so we had a meeting last week with some folks at CAC. They're gonna start a electrician apprentice program. It's not a 2-year degree, but there's a need for electricians. Some companies stepped up and said, we can't find electricians,
Yeah.
we're gonna partner with CAC. They're gonna move some people up from Casa Grande or wherever they are, and they'll pay your tuition for you, et cetera, but that's like a little apprentice program, not going to create a mining industry degree or something like
Yeah,
that.
but I think
there.
we need to be encouraging that.
Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't, because I have seen universities create, like an engineering composites program. Now, they basically create all the engineering degrees for anything that's a carbon fiber canoe, bicycle. They've actually, some university decided, hey, nobody's doing this, we can do it. They put all effort into it, and now that is the go-to place for people all over the country to go get a degree in composite engineering.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think we're kind of I'm sure CAC would do it if they had the students demanding it. I don't think there's that many engineering students banging on their doors saying, hey, offer us a class.
Yeah, but is anybody even telling them that,
I'm
about?
sure they do, that's their business. I mean,
Do you ever hear anything about from CAC?
yeah, I see stuff, I look into their classes here and there. But the thing is, how many people, again, do we have the population to support that for them? It's kind of like, we gotta have fun, we gotta start stuff. Either the private industry does, the city does, somebody has to. Nobody's just really starting stuff, and that's where the dilemma we're at. I mean, we can throw ideas around, but if there's no funding for it, there's no funding for it. And I mean, CAC doesn't have, CAC doesn't have the money.
That's why we're doing a general plan.
Well, I know,
Yes.
but yes.
Thank you.
But again, you know, it's, I'm sure everybody would love to grow and make money and everything. It's just, you know, what's gonna start it, you know?
This,
Well, this lays out guidelines.
well,
but-
that's what,
But then it's gonna
that's
come
what-
down to the
that's the start.
council voting and trying to push certain initiatives, which we
So-
don't have that power here.
well, yeah, we have the power to put it in here.
Yeah.
City council can take it right back out, but at least that's our job to put it in here.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Larry, I know that, I think it's Gila River, Indian tribe has that, Toka Sticks, that, what is it, a Four Seasons Hotel on Power and Williamsfield Road in the city limits of Mesa.
Okay.
How would we go about working some type of deal with one of the tribes to, get them some land for them to develop in a manner such as that?
Well, they could be a developer, but the Indians, has to be trust land, has to be federal trust land. So you have to go to Congress and do a land swap or something. So that's how casinos get built in the
Yeah,
middle of
because if
nowhere
it's not
on
federal land,
land.
they
have
can't
to-
build a casino.
Yeah.
It has to be created as their trust land to do something like, if they're gonna own and operate it. Again, maybe they can set up a corporation that does it. I don't know how that would work, but, a
Well,
lot of.
under resources and partnerships and all that, and under 5.2, has that been looked into? I just happened to notice it the other day. I was like, you know what?
Be
How did
nice.
how did they get this here? It's not a casino. I know it's not a casino, but it's a hospitality, industry that we don't really have serviced very well here. And
Well, I
they've got
know that our economic development staff did a hotel study here not too long ago, and whatever consultant they used said we could support about 52 rooms.
Okay.
So-
Additional or total?
No,
52.
additional, like a new hotel. And it wasn't gonna be, you know, a higher-end one either, so, it's almost like you have to create the marketplace here. That's what it seems to be. You'd have to entice somebody to.
Yeah,
And-
so
and
how,
that's
how do
kind of
we?
There's plenty of
yeah,
state land.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, you know, I don't know all the details and how to go about, happening, but we would like to have some type of resort out here, or conference center, or something like that to draw people
There
out.
have been talks about, public-private partnerships.
I've never once heard any tribal partnerships in what I've been following. Has that ever been brought up before?
Not to my knowledge, but.
And that's a good idea, because
But they're
They're in the
first
business
and
for
foremost
doing
doing
that.
it on land that's theirs. But maybe they're creating development arms that are doing that, I don't know.
Well, I know they bought that land in Glendale, and
That had to be, that had to become federal trust land, though.
okay, well, but I know that they did it, and I know that they've got this land here in Mesa, so why not here as well? I mean,
yeah.
it's something to look into.
Sure. What's that? Land swap, yeah.
Well, we'll swap them something.
Yeah.
Yes, Joel?
Actually, what happened was, there was some flooding that occurred on the Indian land,
There was some what?
flooding,
Flooding.
down in the
Yeah.
Gila Bend area. And the federal government, it was a dam, and the dam overflowed onto Indian land, ruined their crops. So what happened was, they made a deal where they would buy land in Glendale. And basically, that's what happened, and that's how they got that land. It was a land swap also. And then they got into, oh, well, now we can build a casino here, right? Well, the other tribe said, no, you're only supposed to have 3 in statewide. So they got into a battle over that issue, because that was under Proposition 103 or 203 back in 2000. I can't remember the exact year. It was just nasty how it went down. And so some casinos could have 4, some could have 3, and it's kind of a debate still. But that's basically what happened. So, and they do want to have a casino there. It's rigged, it's wired, and they're ready to go. So I think it's going to happen.
Going to happen where?
But it has to be in a compact too, that's approved by the governor, right?
Correct.
Isn't that the hiccup?
That was a big hiccup, correct.
Okay.
But that will happen.
So is there something we could do here and to entice them to?
Entice some tribe to buy
Yeah.
land here or get it approved through the federal government. That's something that, actually, Mayor Suri actually brought that up.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
okay.
He has brought that up.
Casinos aren't a panacea for your economic development, though.
Yeah,
No,
really?
No,
No, they're not.
no,
Oh, they're not?
I don't think so.
Oh,
no.
I don't think
Care
you.
about a casino, I just want to have, I would love to see
No, I
a
think
resort
that
or
if,
conference
again,
center.
if they created some sort of economic development corporation where they're investing their casino earnings and putting that in communities as a partner, that's something you could explore. I don't think they're prohibited from spending money outside the tribal.
Well, I know they
territories.
provide grants to, AJ's had grants provided by.
We applied, yeah, because of that
Yeah.
statute, that we apply for grants
we
from
get a
Gila River and
100,000,
from,
300,000.
Well-
Yeah,
there have to be specified uses. They're pretty narrow of what you can use those
well,
tribal.
maybe we need to go to
gambling.
to some reservation and tell them we got how many acres down here south of the 60 that's just sitting there that they need to come and buy and start a whatever? I
I
mean,
think that's something that should be looked into if it hasn't been already. It's a partnership, it's something, if it hasn't been explored, I think it needs to be.
so that would be one of these,
I think that 5.2, I
enhance
think,
the image and continue the promotion. 5 point,
2.
no, 5.6, isn't it?
is 6.
Sydney, you want me to pull that up?
It's one of those
Well, we'll get along.
5 points.
Continue to promote and exemplify business and economic development, blah, 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 blah.
And Madam Chair, remember, if there is development on Indian land,
Uh-huh,
that doesn't mean the city gets any of the city
Uh.
sales tax, so remember that, because there's no tax on
yeah,
Indian
but that'll
land.
be bringing people here who'll,
Well, they usually create their
Yeah.
casino, they usually create their own hotel, and they usually create it happened up in Prescott.
So you don't get any of it.
well, we could always tell them they can have a casino, but they can't build a hotel because we're gonna build the hotel.
Good luck.
There you go.
I know.
There you go.
See,
The whole
Salt
deal just fell.
Salt River Pima has their own, so all the car dealerships that were on McDowell Road have all moved out to Indian School and the 101, and the tribes have the Salt River Pima have their own sales tax. So it's basically the same sales tax that the city of Scottsdale has, so now you buy a car, on Indian School and the 101 at that new auto mall, that sales tax goes to, the Salt River Pima Nation.
Wow.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So they
So it
can,
doesn't
they
matter
collect.
what we do, everybody else gets the money, but we get none, is what you're saying.
You're screwed, in
Yeah,
other words.
well, I wasn't gonna say it.
Unless we go to the casino, make a lot of money, and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
let the
But
city
if we do
some
have
money and
something
gamble
like
on
that, it will bring in more development.
Yeah,
It's
I-
gotta start someplace.
I would think so, I'd like to think so. So, do we wanna put something under, would it be under 5.6?
Well, I thought when under 5.2 about align resources, I just put a note here about a tribal partner or something, and.
Where-
we have to
Wherever
flesh-
it would
We gotta
go.
flesh out some language to do that.
Yeah, okay.
There's nothing in here, there has been talk about this, resort or whatever, how come so-and-so city is 19 and we have 0? Tucson, has all these, so nobody's golfing anymore, right? No one's building any golf courses, so the resort would have to be a different type of resort, a spa or wellness spa.
Yeah.
Or something, and there's certainly enough land here for it. But the only thing I'm thinking the city could do is, we put, we have to do a lot of front-end homework, so we understand what it is. The city could put out a request for proposals to try to find someone to go do that, but it's like we gotta line everything up for them. So
Well, this-
that
this
it's not
is a-
just a flight of fancy, it actually could happen.
This is a plan, so we're not concrete, set in stone, this is what we're gonna do.
Right.
It's a plan that we're gonna look into potential. So I think that we need to leave no stone unturned when we're looking for sources of revenue, partnerships, anything like that, that can improve the standing of the city.
Yeah.
And if partnering with the tribe to bring in some type of hotel or whatever it might be, if that's what the catalyst is to start growth and bringing in outside business, then so be it.
You just gave me an idea. thought, 20 years ago on Parks and Rec,
Williamsfield.
we did the master plan or whatever for the Parks and Rec for the future, for the next 20 years or whatever. And one of them up at the rodeo grounds at the time, before they found out they couldn't do all of this, besides the rodeo grounds was going to be a 50,000 square foot exhibit hall and an amphitheater.
Yep.
You've got the Superstition Mountains as the backdrop for a big amphitheater. Now, the thing is, the city can't do it on state trust land and all federal land, state land, whatever, because they can't make the profit. But if somebody else would do that, you know, I mean, that would be like, what's the name of the place on the west side of the valley with the big amphitheater that everybody goes to and,
Desert Sky.
Yeah, Desert Sky.
yeah, I haven't been
No, it's called Auction.
okay.
Cricket Pavilion?
But they have that big amphitheater where they get big name, I saw Barry Manilow there, 20 years ago. Well, that was 20 years ago.
Could have been
Hush.
recently, I don't
No.
Who was that?
Now, that was at least 20, maybe 25 years ago, but still, a lot of, that place fills up with people, Why don't we get somebody to build an amphitheater out here?
Okay, let's do it.
It's a,
Yeah.
but I
Yep.
mean,
Exactly.
all I'm saying is if they can do it there, we know it can be successful. We should
can't
be
even
able to
have
do it here.
announcers at the-
Huh?
We can't even have announcers on loudspeakers out here.
I think one of the things that, and I hate to always be clamoring for more plans, but what some cities do, they have a specific economic development strategy, an overall economic development strategy, rather than saying, putting it in 4 pages in the general plan. They actually kind of think through all the things you're talking about. What would work, what can we capitalize on? And they spend a couple years just thinking about the cursory thing we're doing here isn't a city overall economic development strategy. There's some goals and policies here, I'm not saying business as usual, but we're doing what we can with the tools we have. But just like we had a thing in here to say we should really have a downtown master plan, maybe we should have something that is some overall economic development plan, based on what we know, what the trends are, what our assets, resources are, and then we can say, you know what, that amphitheater idea, that, we can get that done, rather than spitballing it here.
That's a
So,
great idea, Larry. Great idea.
However you want to handle it. I've just remembered that is actually still on the drawing board
Right.
at Parks and Rec, Well, maybe it can't be through them at Prospector Park, but maybe we could do it some other way. So,
Would that be a volunteer board, Larry?
Yes, they all are. But there's venues in state parks, I've been to, you think about these outside places like Red Rock, or these famous places where they do, what's the one in, out of sight of Chicago, the Ravinia? I mean, all these places have these outdoor venues
Yes.
that attract national, and one I'm familiar with in upstate New York, it's in a state park, but it's this cool amphitheater, and they have, you name it, goes there. But it's in this beautiful setting. Well, we have a beautiful setting here, and so we're
Well,
never gonna go build an amphitheater that's a commercial amphitheater on the wilderness, but nearby with that as a backdrop,
yeah, that's
why
what I'm
not?
talking about.
Right.
You
Why
just have to go as far as Mesa to see their amphitheater. And they draw,
Yeah.
entertain, and their art center draws
Oh, I
lots of
remember
folks.
15 years ago, 20 years ago, when they were building that, everybody thought they were crazy, because you had Symphony Hall and everything down in Phoenix, and they thought Mesa was crazy that they were gonna
But it
keep that
works.
place loaded,
It works.
with everybody,
It
yeah.
works.
So
So
just
why-
like you would have a parks master plan, maybe a downtown master plan, maybe the city ought to be thinking about an overall economic development master plan. Again, all those things have to align together, though,
Yeah.
And just for the record,
Yeah.
the Barry Manilow tickets were given to me for free.
Oh, sure, yeah, right. Yeah, I heard that. Yep.
I wouldn't have paid for them.
I want to hear about when you met Buzz Aldrin and all those guys in
No, I met
July
John
of
Glenn.
1969.
I've met John Glenn,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
At
Been
the Barry,
kissed
at
by-
the Barry Manilow concert,
Hey,
or?
No,
Okay.
but I was kissed by Rick Nelson,
Really?
honest to God. These lips, yeah. I went to a concert, back in my younger, sexy days, you know, and he leaned over and kissed me.
All right.
Sweat dripped up on my face, you know?
This is TMI.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Make that goal 5.7 or something.
Hey, I've had Jack Lord's arm around me.
Another TMI.
I had a picture taken with him, you know, he,
Okay, folks, let's get
Are we on chapter 6 now? Are we on chapter 6?
Can I just make one quick comment on, from goal 5.5? I really like policy 1, the likelihood of one community feeling like two different
where
places.
are you?
Yes,
Goal 5.5.
yes.
It's just, I think one of the things I've always heard is it's that small town, western town. I think we can be that, plus we can be something else. And if we get people to embrace the idea that we can do both of those successfully, that will help. That will
I
help
think you're
people
right.
feel like we're not pushing out the western heritage at all.
That gets back to our branding.
Correct, but I think you're right. So I think it can work. I guess I think that's a great concept.
You know, I was talking about branding, that just popped an idea into my, not an idea, but a thought. Whatever happened to the fancy street signs that were gonna have the logo and all on them?
You still have it, just been a lack of funding. I think
Oh,
now
okay.
we are talking about adding some more of those, so is up on Plaza and Superstition,
Okay,
trying to do a few more of those.
how about some flags? Fly some flags,
Some banners?
Yeah.
You're talking about? We do have banners on
like a
North
flag.
Apache Trail.
just
Yeah.
like an American flag, fly flag that has the logo on it.
Yeah.
It's a great logo.
But we do there was a wayfinding study done, and the whole
bless
artwork,
you.
all that has been done.
Yeah.
In the past, I remember, but not a lot happened with it.
observation there?
Okay, Sydney, you wanna move on?
Commission, going real quick back to the hotel idea, something that we could do also, especially in our downtown, since we just talked about it, is encourage a boutique hotel user within a mixed-use development. So especially, multifamily and the hotel would be in their one building, perhaps offices would be on the ground level, and it doesn't have to be a large hotel, it'd be a boutique user, perhaps, 20, 30, 40 rooms or so. And then that way we could start small. So when the development comes in and we're having conversations with those developers, we can encourage those types of users and they could go pursue those types of businesses.
Especially since the marathon became, whoever thought 20 years ago when they developed the marathon that it would ever grow the
Yeah.
way it is, and people
Yep.
come from all over the world to
Huge.
come here to stay.
Yeah.
But if they also had an amphitheater for entertainment and, nice
Yeah. And that,
resort and.
and that way, Commission, we're starting off small, but like Larry said, we're setting the stage, and we're creating the marketplace.
Okay,
Okay, moving on to Chapter 6, Public Safety Services and Facilities. This is Rudy's section, be easy. It's broken down really into 6 sections, talks about everything from the police department to the fire district, to the public works department, our school district, public library, and then our other services that we have, such as development services, our economic development, our court, our city clerk, our PIO. So it talks about city attorney, Joel. So it talks about a range of things here. So it's a kind of a broad chapter. Does anyone have any
yeah,
comments?
I have just 2. On
Okay.
this page here, not this one, on the second page, next page. No, it's after the Public Works page,
Okay.
the one
Yeah.
after.
Did I pass it already?
No, keep going, you're going the right way. Keep going.
Oh,
Next
there you-
page, next page.
Public library?
Yeah, right up there at the top where it starts comprised, that's where I had put my note, I just came across it about where it talks, CAC has identified the city of AJ as a growth area and is gained, and that's where I put my hang. What are they talking about? 20 years ago, they told us they were gonna do that, so that would be a good place to put that complaint. Another thing to add for people who are reading this, one of the best-kept secrets in Apache Junction, and it still surprises me how many people don't know this, with all the things that you listed here, or Spencer maybe put in this here for you, for all the stuff at the public library. How many people know what media box is? Best kept secret in Apache Junction. Do you know what a media bank. You know what a red box is, right?
Yes.
At Walmart or Walgreens or wherever. Well, we have a machine built in the back door of our library that you can go to 24/7, 365 days, any time of the day and night, and get DVD, movies, and games and everything out. And I think
And
that's
for
one of,
free?
yeah, for free with a library card. One of agent,
24/7?
24/7.
There's
You-
like
all
a
you-
little person in there that's like putting,
No, it's a machine, just
Really?
like Redbox, and you just walk up to the back door, you
big
stick
person.
your library card in there, and you can get out DVDs, games, all kinds of stuff.
whatever they have in the system.
Whatever they have in the system. And like I said, I think it's one of the best-kept secrets in Apache Junction. It's never been advertised.
Called Media Bank?
It's called Media Bank. It's
Media
it's
Bank.
just built in right by the back door.
You'll never find it, Peter, it's at the back door.
Well, you don't remember it used to be the front door? But now it's the back door?
I'll go at midnight, that way. there won't
Charge
be
and we
anybody
can buy
around.
land with that money.
Yeah, no, I see people all the time, like down here at Walgreens, using Redbox, and I go up to them and I said, did you know that you can go up and get those same movies at the library for free? And sadly enough, they always say, almost 99 out of 100 say, really? Where's the library? It's sad, you know, they're paying their buck or whatever it costs to get movies that way, and they can get them for free at the library. Anyway, that's that.
I have a concern with the issue of public education, and we're looking at Apache Junction Unified School District. I think you all know that the school district has not had any additional funding for about 14 or 15 years.
2004.
Yes, so that has brought our public school system, buildings, the whole 9 yards, down to the point where they are really rapidly deteriorating. A lot of it is not technologically sound. Some of the curriculum and even our football, our track, we cannot have at the track. We can not have any kind of athletic activities
Competition.
for competition because the track is unsafe. So here in Apache Junction is rated as a school that is only like CD. That's the grade that we have. And even though we have improved somewhat, it's not enough to prevent the bleed to charter schools. And we just had a new charter school opening up in Apache Junction, which further deteriorates our public education system. What happens when you have two systems in place? Neither one of them can produce a student that is capable of academically performing at a higher education. So they have to go in and do a lot of remedial work before they're even capable of performing at higher education. So it's extremely important that we address the issue of the needs of our school district. And we have a movement that is going on, that if it's successful, we will be able to do that. So here again, this is a rant, because public education is near and dear to my heart, and we need to really support our school system. And remember, that's the biggest employer here in Apache Junction. Another rant.
You will all be hearing, yes, yes, our kids, our community, very
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you.
Shirley and I are both on the,
Members,
well, I don't know if we're members, but
well,
we're,
we participate.
yes.
It's a good point, though. That's a good
Thank
point.
you.
Anyone else regarding this chapter?
Nope, I'm done. Actually, I have no more.
Okay. That's the last chapter that we're going to review tonight, so it looks like we're done.
Oh, really? Well, let's go keep going.
So I have an idea I wanted to bring up. We were talking about scheduling meetings. So far, we're through 6. We're gonna meet a week from today on the 8th. We have a fairly light agenda on the 13th, and I know, Willie, you were gonna tell Rudy you're gonna miss the 13th, so I hate to go through the general plan while you're not here, but one idea was if we could go through, 4 elements next Thursday, then we could have done the, last 2 right after, as part of the regular meeting on the 13th, then we wouldn't have to meet on the 15th. But I don't want Willie the land use element's kind of a important element, or we could do them in different order, or whatever.
Do we have enough time for 4 hours?
Well, you wanna keep it to 2 hours, is that the general thought?
Probably.
Anyway, maybe we'll know more on Thursday, the 8th, I'm just throwing that idea out there, but again, I don't want anybody to miss part of the discussion. If we already know Willie's not gonna be here on the 15th, I don't wanna do that, but that was an idea.
I don't even have the 15th down.
The 13th.
13th, I meant.
Oh,
Tuesday,
okay.
the 13th. My idea
So
was,
we do-
okay, if we got through a number of them,
Next Thursday, the 8th, and then our regular Tuesday, right?
those are scheduled dates. We have 2 items coming up on the 13th.
Okay.
But we could, on the 13th, if we're not done on the 8th, we'd have to set at least one more meeting date, which could be the 15th.
Okay.
So just alerting you.
Does it have to be the 15th, or could it be the next Thursday? I mean, if that's an issue?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it
Oh,
doesn't have
okay.
to be the 15th. It could be the,
22nd?
something like that, sure.
Yeah, okay. So is that everything? I mean,
Yeah, you're doing great.
So Larry, just to clarify, we're shooting for chapters 7, 8, and 9, and 10 next time?
No,
yeah.
well, not necessarily. We'll see where we go. That was the thought. We could
Right.
do, if we were getting through them, don't have to
so
stop
what's our
3.
homework for the next meeting then?
As long as we keep it to 9 o'clock, you're okay.
Yeah.
If we got through 4, you'd be fine with it.
What's our
If we only get
homework?
through 2,
So
we only get through 2.
So, just to be safe, then it would be chapters 7, 8, 9, and 10 that would be your potential homework?
7 through 10.
Okay, thank
Correct,
you.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Gotta write this down. For the next meeting, on the...
The
Oh.
8th.
The 8th.
The 8th.
The 8th, next
A week
week
from
on...
tonight, 7
Week from
o'clock.
tonight. That's our homework. Okay.
We really appreciate all your help. Thank you, everyone.
That's it then. So unless anybody has any other comments or questions or anything, we'll adjourn this meeting at 8:52.